the main mindset, I think, among younger guys is if you rewind time and you remember what you were like as a kid, it's like when someone tells you no, it just makes you want to do it more. Like, why would I listen to this person?
Of course. So, I was the same, dude. Yeah. That's how I made all my mistakes.
Exactly.
Vigorous podcast with a new guy in the block. There's a new educator in town, Tanner Tattered. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Happy to be on. It's a blast.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I saw your Instagram come past a couple times on my recommendation feed, and then I saw myself. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I see my own thumbnails, right, that you use kind of as a reference when you talk about, PEDs and safer practices. So I started following you. And I like what you're doing, man. I mean, you're bringing all of this content, from old timers like myself, right? And your own influx to like a younger generation, which is great because, like for the steroid educators, it takes years, right? Before you're at that level, you feel like educating. And of course, you've been researching for a long time, but your audience is probably a lot younger than my audience. So I want to thank you personally for sharing the message and spreading the knowledge to all these young dudes out there, because you're literally saving lives and preventing a lot of mistakes for the guys that don't want to listen to old farts like me. So how did you get started in this social media game?
Yeah, so it's an interesting little story. I did start on TikTok. It was one summer, classes are finished and I get the TikTok app. I'm scrolling on it. I like watching a lot of different creators. And I kind of start following that classic recipe. You'll see someone working out. There's like a motivational quote, inspirational sort of gym content. And you go down that road and you realize it's very oversaturated. A lot of people do that same kind of thing. So it's hard to make yourself stand out. At the same time, I was interested in pharmacology. I'd seen some of Derek's videos. I'd watched you and Leo. And somewhere along the way, I see a lot of misconceptions about anabolics and enhancements, especially in a younger generation, which they'll only hear bits and pieces here and there. And so they think to themselves, oh, I'll do my first cycle and I'll look like Chris Bumstead after it.
I wish, dude. I've been doing steroids for like 15 years. I still don't look like Chris Bumstead, unfortunately.
Exactly. Right. And so that was the first video that came out was I said, hey, realize your expectations here if you are going to get on a cycle for the first time. And that got a lot of popularity. That was the first video I'd ever made touching on enhancements. And so I went down that road of, all right, there's some pretty low-hanging fruit of myths to debunk, and just spreading that basic information to guys and giving them a more level-headed idea of what this stuff actually is and how to approach it in a safer and more moderate way.
Right. So what I noticed over the last couple of years that, when you get to like, a larger YouTube channel, you want to educate beginners all the way to the top of the people that have been doing this for decades. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult for me to like kind of relay my message, because I do expect people to have some sort of knowledge on the back end when they're interested. Yeah. But sometimes I realize like, the audience could be like complete beginners. And I'm at a point where I don't even know how to dumb it down so far that even beginners could understand. Right. And then, I've been doing this for such a long time that I feel like I'm kind of losing touch with the younger audience, because I'm also getting older. And I don't know what it is like to be, not financially secure to the point I can just do blood work every month and afford the pharmaceutical grade and source that everywhere. Sometimes I really have to take a step back, like, wait a minute, how would I survive when I was like, teenager, early 20s? Yeah. And that's why I like what you're doing, because you're literally just trying to teach these kids and younger people, like, well, wait a minute, slow down, right? It's not required. Like, what are the common misconceptions that you kind of see pass along your TikTok and Instagram platform? Like, what is going on with the younger crowd nowadays?
Yeah, so there's definitely trends of misconceptions. I think at a fundamental level, there's just not that understanding. Like, so what you're saying about how it's difficult to like dumb it down to a certain level where even a complete beginner can understand, you have to kind of speak the language a little bit. There's a little bit of foundational understanding you need to start watching your videos and getting like 100% out of it, right?
Yeah.
There, basic things like testosterone aromatizes into estrogen, right? That's something that guys should know as they're getting into this space. So, a lot of the misconceptions I see is about cycle design. They'll see a steroid touted as being popular, Trenbolone, notorious, right? They start thinking to themselves, oh, I can just do Tren, right? That's a steroid. I can do my first cycle of that. Tren only cycles probably not a good idea for your first time. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So there's one of them, and it kind of just rolls from there. Little things that might not be as intelligent, like if you're afraid of injecting, that's actually, I think, a good barrier to entry to getting on steroids. And so they might try to do a D-ball only cycle or anabar only cycle, some things that have mixed results, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, whenever I make a video about that oral only cycles are not a good idea, and I try to explain HPTA downregulation and that you're losing out on testosterone and estradiol and everything in between, right? And that you still need to do a PCT, which of course is easy because those are tablets too in most cases. A lot of people are still for these oral only cycles, and it doesn't help that guys like Dr. Mike Israetel is like telling everybody like, oh, you want to go, you go on cycle, Anavar only is totally fine. I'm like, Mike, bro, you should know better, right? At least make the entry of the barrier of entry a little bit higher, so people really think it through, right? You do need to inject, and otherwise they're going to reinvent the wheel with Anavar and then enclomiphene monotherapy. So you got 2 tablets now. Extra liver stress, nothing about liver health management. Yeah. So do you see that a lot? Like a lot of kids are or young guys that are wanting to start and they're like, no injections for me.
It's super common. And it's especially true of teenagers because, they live with their parents and they don't want their mom to find a bunch of needles, right? But they still want gains, right? They still want to get bigger. And so one of the really popular things is say like enclomiphene and the SARM or maybe HCG in the SARM, but again, back to the injections. Thankfully, I think I've hammered it into enough people that at least just telling them the suppressive effects of an oral steroid, something like Anavar or D-ball, probably not worth trying to force an offset with enclomiphene. But, you can't really, you're not going to break into these people's houses and take the stuff out of their hands, right? It's very hard to, to stop it. Right.
I wish. Do you get it sometimes that these young guys start to quote you studies where Anavar doesn't show any HPTA downregulation for like 8 weeks or 16 weeks at moderate doses? Like, but Tanner, what about this study where it shows that I can take Anavar without having my luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone suppressed? Does that happen to you too? Because sometimes they hold the evidence against you,
Right. There's obviously cases like that. But honestly, if someone's at the point where they're citing studies to me, I'm already a little more optimistic about where they're going at. Typically, if someone's saying like, no, like my buddy at the gym told me I can do it and it's fine, then I'm a little bit worried. It's, it's that differentiation between like, are you actually looking at the literature and are you looking at all of the literature? Not just, hey, there's this 1 or 2 studies that supports my bias. Be careful there, right?
Oh, don't worry. That will happen when you're 50 years old also. I know plenty of educators who like to quote one. We're not going to go there. I won't drag you into it, but trust me, dude, next week there will be Instagram posts about you too. Just don't pay it any money.
I've already been there.
You've already been there. Yep. Dude, but then you're successful. That's what Paul Burnett also told me. He said, listen, if you're not successful unless you haven't made it to the asshole masterclass yet. And otherwise, right, you're not part of the fitness industry. So if you're already there, then dude, good on you, man. Good on you. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a wild experience, but I feel like I'm free from those chains. The posts have stopped. It's good.
All right. Okay.
Maybe they'll be back. I don't know.
They'll be back after the podcast. Yeah. Trust me. So the funny thing is about the fitness industry is that, the more information and love and attention and knowledge you're sharing, the negativity will come as well. And that's just part of the fitness industry, right? Even if you, put your best leg forward 100% of the time, then people will always try to find faults for you. And that's why it's so tough. I think the social media for guys that are a little bit younger, even though they've had, access to social media their entire lives, like it does get tough when you start growing really rapidly. Like Joe Statics, for example, he grew very rapidly. And then sometimes people were really hammered into him. And it took him a while to kind of get over that, And of course, the same people who are now talking about him were the same people who were talking smack when he was still alive. And but this is social media, this is the avenue that you chose. You'll just have to get hardened because it can be pretty brutal sometimes. Yeah. And the funny thing is, if you slip up somewhere and, half the industry is ready to remind you, a month later, they've forgotten about it.
Yeah. That's what's so interesting about it is, you now become this public figure. Everything you're saying is being watched and monitored by people.
Yeah.
And it's strange, as much as you want to be yourself online and be as natural and as comfortable as you are, there's certain areas where you think like, well, I don't know, if I do say something that's kind of a personal opinion, maybe people are going to tackle that as, is that scientific fact? Because he's an educator in that space,
Yeah.
right? And yeah,
You
you're
always
walking
get
around
this.
eggshells there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You always, yeah. Same for Derek, for me, Paul, Chase, you. I mean, everybody's basically walking on eggshells. And the funny thing is that everything we're doing is very circumstantial, right? So you apply particular methods of performance enhancing drugs and health management in a certain context. You have a certain goal, a certain risk tolerance. Like my risk tolerance might not be the same as somebody else's risk tolerance. I've seen my liver enzymes go to 200 units per liter and then come right back. And I'm like, okay, if I'm at 200 temporarily, I'm fine. But a guy that's just getting started or doesn't have so much experience with their body, they're like, ooh, maybe that's, maybe I have a liver failure, right? But for a guy with experience, for me, I'm like, I've seen so much blood work, like, okay, it's high, it's alarmingly high, but we can fix it, right? So if you're doing a show, okay, maybe this, 100 to 200 units on your ALT and AST is warranted. So over time, you kind of develop more knowledge that goes away from the medical field. And especially when you realize that most of the medical literature is just performed in a single context on a single drug. And what we do is polypharmacy.
Yeah.
We combine 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 different drugs together. And this is where the scientific evidence kind of is lost, because there's no studies to recite or quote from because they haven't been performed. So maybe in 100 years, guys like us will look a little bit smarter because we're ahead of our time and we can fill in the blanks. Yeah. So when did you get started on this PED journey? Like, what is your background on this bodybuilding space?
Yeah. So it's been pretty recent, and it's interesting because it's been about like almost 2 years now that I've been in the gym and lifting. And there was a little bit of that beforehand. I was in a fraternity at college, and so occasionally you go and like pick up some weights with your buddies, but it's not actual bodybuilding, right? So once things got serious for me, my introduction to it was Ronnie Coleman, and so my immediate thought in my head was, how do I look like that, right? And
you got to go 10.
Is that ever
a lot?
Yeah, exactly. A little melanotan to help out there.
Yeah, there you go.
But the immediate thought is, wow, how do I look like that? I know I'm probably never going to get there. But that was the opening door to, well, I guess enhancements are involved. It's not like he just eats chicken, rice, and broccoli all day long and looks like that.
And barbecue, and Masterpiece barbecue sauce. Don't forget the Masterpiece.
Yeah, and duck eggs, the usual.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you watch those old Ronnie Coleman videos, he puts like Masterpiece barbecue sauce on everything.
Oh, is that what he said?
And then, and his coach, Chad Nichols, literally worked all those sugars that he got from the barbecue sauce into his diet. So he would reduce the carbohydrates a little bit just to compensate for the barbecue sauce. And dude, everybody got on that barbecue sauce. I had a friend import that when they watched the DVDs. Yeah, from Ronnie Combs. That barbecue sauce must be anabolic. This is how impressionable you are when you're younger.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
I was more thankful to grow up in the information age where I know that the barbecue sauce it's a different kind of sauce that he's been using. And so for sure. I start, poking around message boards and finding out like little bits and pieces. And the real eye-opening experience for me was I saw some article somewhere about a DECA D-ball cycle. And I was like, oh yeah, like that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my first cycle. And I talked to one of my buddies about it who knows about this stuff at least more than me at the time. And he was like, you really got to go back to the drawing board. And I sat there for a second and I thought, and I was like, well, why? Like, I don't understand what I did wrong. And so I really started researching it after that, scouring everything rather than just jumping straight into it. And it was during that time, I find you guys, realize, okay, if I'm going to start with anything, it's just going to be testosterone. So since then, my journey has just been that first cycle of testosterone was 300 milligrams a week. I did experiment pushing up to 500, seeing if my body tolerated it. My estrogen levels got really high, but I actually didn't get any side effects, which was really interesting. And then came off the cycle, have been cruising basically ever since. So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
So that's the extent of it. So
well, I've had the cruising. There's been some experimentation because my tendency to be a lab rat, I'm sure you understand, has been microdosing trenbolone here and there, see if I can get the like CEO type effects out of it, and then other things. I got a coach recently, and his protocol, DECA, Masteron, testosterone, growth hormone, and seeing how that would work for my body. That's the extent of my PED knowledge. And beyond that, it's just been talking with mentors and people who have the experience, because I do have to outsource that. I can't, do everything right away. It is going to take time, right?
It took me basically a decade before I felt ready to kind of open my mouth on YouTube and Instagram. Because in the meantime, I made plenty of mistakes, experimenting with stuff. You go to the message board, same as you get the wrong information. You think that you know, but you don't really know. And then you have to get your hands dirty, right? So I've been actively trying to give back, just preventing people from making the same mistakes. But sometimes people will still do it, or they think that it sounds actually quite cool when Steve talks about it, even though I do admit to the mistakes. It's a funny journey in that sense. So what you'll see is that, some people will walk or, take from the knowledge that you give them and make good decisions like you did, right? You're like, wait a minute, you got some feedback, and then you made a better decision to structure your cycle a little bit more intelligently. But 9 out of 10 people will already fail there. They're like, and they'll be stubborn. I say, what, forget it. I don't care what this guy says. I'm going to do it anyway. And trust me, I'm not laying blame. I was exactly the same. I was exactly the same.
Right.
Tren on the second cycle, I did it too.
Yeah.
So, this way you kind of learn over time. And then I think now the information out there is so much better that you don't really have to make terrible mistakes.
Right.
Unless you really don't want to learn. But now the knowledge is everywhere. It's out in the public. Like back in the day, I really had to go, dig deep in the message boards to really find quality information. And even then it was subpar to what you can do, on PubMed or other research websites. So in your inbox, you got questions about Tren every single day now?
Surprisingly, it's been fading out, which is kind of nice. I mean, you hammer it into their heads enough times, like, hey, it's not, light work. It's pretty serious stuff. So, people are getting the idea. And I think that's true of anything in the space, is that there are certain myths that float around. And as these educators constantly hammer on them again and again, eventually they start to slowly fade away, which is pretty good. Right. Like how estrogen used to be thought of as like being bad because it's like the woman hormone. And that's now fading out.
That took a long time to go away, though.
Right.
It took a long time. Yeah, I really wonder what's going to happen over the next couple of years, with all this information now being more to the forefront, because you even see the IFBB pros opening up more and more and more. And, it's good for the guys that are a little bit older, but I do think that it might be harmful for the guys that are a little bit younger, because now they think they know. And then they might be more incentivized to start earlier. I was 26 when I started taking PEDs. And I did, an ampule of test, 250 milligrams per week, because I thought, 500 milligrams was way too high. And I read those D-Ball cycle logs, with the D-Ball kickstart. I read all those cycle logs on Steroid.com and Professional Muscle and all that stuff. And I figured, what? All these guys get side effects at week 4 or 5. And then the cycle log ends because they had to abort their cycle because they got terrible acne and gyno and puffy face. You sometimes see before and after pictures. Or people with edema and stuff. So I realized, okay, just test bioidentical, right?
Right.
And even then, with consecutive cycles, you make some mistakes here and there. But I think nowadays, dude, there's really no excuse to make horrible mistakes unless you're really gung ho about doing it. And the funny thing is, like at your age bracket, you see all these kids kicking ass, right, on social media, like Sam Sulek and. There's so many new guys, and they're like early 20s, and they look house. And I think it's very cliquey, that group, because I see all these influencers. They're usually between like 18 to 25 years old. They're all on TRT or more, or running heavy cycles. They get mad famous, internet famous, right?
Right.
and their followings are huge, so they make big bucks already from the beginning. Because you got a couple sponsors now, and the revenue that's involved with that. Are you already past what you think you could make with an employee or employer?
It blows my mind when I look at the numbers. I did not realize how lucrative it could be. And it's just insane to see the success. And that's just me. I have 30,000 followers on Instagram, and, my TikTok got banned. It used to be 50,000. I imagine with these guys with 200,000, 500,000, what they're doing. It's nuts.
Now, I've seen the statistics from Gorilla Mind. I mean, some of these influencers, they make, 10, 20, $50,000 per month. And that's just the supplement sponsor, and
Yeah.
of course
Yeah.
they've got very large followings, but they're early 20s and they don't know what to do with the money. They've never learned about investment. They've never learned
Yeah.
about, I mean, they're fresh out of high school. Some of them don't even
Right.
follow high school or finish high school, so you don't really have that background of how to manage your money. And I think a lot of kids nowadays, they really want to be a part of that scene because now you have money, now you can be flashy, now you can show off, you can
Right.
buy all the cool clothes that people want you to buy. Like when you're older, you don't give a shit about that. You just wear the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at the old generation of bodybuilders. We all look dead broke, right? Even though we're not. we just don't care anymore. But when you're young, it really matters. You need to wear the young LA and clothes or Vanquish or whatever else is popular nowadays. You need the particular pre-workouts, otherwise you don't belong. Do you see that a lot in your age group where kids are just like, really eager to get started on social media with gear because they want to be part of that elite exclusive club that is making money?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting way to look at it in a clicky fashion. And it's one thing to be taking it as a click is like, oh, I need to buy the clothing. I need to fit into this demographic because everyone else is doing this. Everyone else is doing that. And exactly like I'm saying, it's like one thing if it's the clothing or it's like, oh, everyone uses Gorilla Mind. Everyone go take their supplements. Right. It's another thing if it's steroids. And it's like, if I want to feel like I fit in, I have to get on. And you scroll on social media, you scroll on TikTok, you see all of these people saying, I'm natural or whatever. And they have these insane physiques, right? Absolutely incredible. And you start thinking to yourself, well, I don't look like that. I've been lifting for longer than he has. How does that make any sense? And the natural next step for a lot of people, especially when insecurity comes in, you're a young guy, you want to feel like you fit in, you want to feel cool. That next step could be getting enhanced out of a place of insecurity or out of a place of wanting to belong.
Right.
And then, you're in over your head a little bit, getting on, I would argue, for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it happen a lot more often than not. And there's also younger guys that are open about their steroid use. I mean, you got the Tren twins, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Promoting Tren, basically. I mean, I don't think that they're only on Tren, but they do look good and they're having a great time in the gym. But I mean, it would be, I'm trying to imagine what it would be like if I was younger, like 15, 18, 20 years old at this day and age, if I would be just as impressionable as everybody else. Because I decided to wait until I was 26, right, to take steroids.
Right, exactly.
And that's after 11 years of drug-free bodybuilding and doing years and years and years of research because I didn't feel ready. And the time and place wasn't really right because I was trying to make a career as a business consultant. So you feel like, what, I can do a cycle, but I can't really commit to everything that's needed when you're doing a cycle. I want to make the gains, right? And I'm a little bit worried about my health. But I think nowadays when those kids see the potential for social media and they see that all their social media stars are on steroids and maybe lying about it. I mean, if you look impressive, you're probably on steroids. It's just to be expected. So I think they're taking the plunge a lot earlier, What I had this discussion with Joe Statics about 5 years ago, and he said something very interesting. He's like, Steve, at one point there's going to be a generation of Instagrammers and YouTubers with no real skills besides milking the algorithm. They can't transfer any knowledge. They just look good because they have a good physique from their parents, and they'll take steroids, but they don't know how to educate. They don't know how to coach. They don't know how to, transfer this. All they know is looking good until the next guy that looks good comes around or they get injured, and then they're obsolete.
Yep.
And it's coming from Joe, 5-6 years ago before he really blew up. And I do think that's going to happen because now it seems like overly saturated. If I scroll, I just see new kids come and go all the time. They get injured and then it's off to the next guy, and the worst thing is that they're now, severely depressed because they have to come off cycle. Their revenue streams dry up because, their entire fan base just moves to the next guy.
Yep.
And they didn't really learn how to, do something else with it. So my advice is always, it's just, leverage your following and just try to monetize it, but multiple revenue streams because, at one point, one of them might dry up. So you already started doing consultations. So your inbox doesn't get flooded. I saw.
Right. Yeah. So the consultations, I added that kind of as a, if someone sends me a message and it's, 3 paragraphs of details, it's like, it's probably going to be best if we just talk face to face about this. And, you know, you value my time, I value yours, all of that. It's a mutually beneficial relationship there. And then, the beyond that, like if it's just quick questions and I can handle those. But yeah, the consultations have been really cool because it's interesting to speak with guys that are older than me, but who just don't have the knowledge. It puts me in this strange space where it's like, oh, this is kind of flipped. Like, I mean, I know being a student, being in the classroom, an older person is talking to me, and then suddenly it's switched, and it's like, this guy kind of looks like my professor. Now I'm telling him about things. It's a, it's an interesting balance. Good. Yeah.
No, but that's good. But then you already have the confidence and the you know, or not the confidence, you have the respect of the audience, right? Which is difficult to do at your age. And trust me, I was in the same position when I was starting to do business consulting when I was like 21 years old.
Yeah.
Nobody takes you serious, dude. Nobody. So you really have to fight for it and just go through the grinder, work the extra overtime before people actually start to listen, even though you might have more knowledge on particular subjects than the next guy who's been there for a long time. So now if you're already getting older dudes, you know, when you start getting them in their 40s and 50s, you know, then that's another measurement of success. You know, just keep doing what you're doing and they'll get more and more and more until the rates have to go up. And then you know exactly what it feels like to be in my position.
Yeah, exactly what you said about like diversifying your income streams though. I mean, I feel a little concerned for the guys who are built entirely on physique for exactly the reasons you're saying. You know, they get injured and it can be as quickly as over for them. They might still have that reputation. They might still have some loyal followers, but there's always that bigger fish. There's always that like next big thing and people kind of jump ship and move to that.
Right.
That can be really hard on you. So unless you have like something else that you offer, like kind of a specification within your niche, then I think it's tricky to stay relevant afterwards. You know, I know Bradley Martin is a good example who used to do the whole gym thing and then has now translated over into owning his own business and having his podcast more as a personality and less for his physique. That puts you in a more stable position. You know, if there's any end game that would be pretty nice, it's something like that rather than I just look good all year round. You can't look good into your 60s and 70s, man. There's going to be a point when it runs out, right?
Mid-30s already, it starts to go downhill. Trust me. It sucks. And then you start thinking about kids, you know, you have to come off cycle. Like I've been off cycle for like close to 7 months now. And the reason why I'm still relevant and you will stay relevant if you come off cycle and do something where you don't look freaky is because you have something unique to present, right? Knowledge.
Yeah.
And knowledge is always relevant, you know, until people really get bored for you and you don't reinvent yourself with new knowledge. Then as long as that point comes, you just stay relevant. So whether I'm tiny, right, completely off cycle and fasting for a couple of weeks just to get, you know, starve particular issues off and then come back on cycle, my audience would still grow the same. And you'll see the same for you, whether you're on a cycle or TRT or post-cycle therapy or take a whole year off from the gym. As long as you present the knowledge that people can learn from, then you will continue to provide value. And that's why I like the educator space more than the influencer space. Because even though the influencer space, you can grow 10 times faster and make money 10 times faster. It does come with like a 5 to 7 year shelf life. And after that, it's kind of over. I mean, look at the old generation of Facebook and Instagram celebrities, you know, or YouTube celebrities. Completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right now. All been replaced. You know, most of them already retired. And of course, some of them invested really well into gyms, like Bradley Martin, for example. He's got a gym, he's got a clothing line. I'm sure he's got some sponsors. He knows how to podcast. He puts a couple ads here and there with those ad placements. He probably makes like $5,000 to $10,000 per ad placement. So, you know, I mean, it adds up at the end of the month.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, the ad placements are, I mean, I get these requests all the time. You know, when you have a bigger platform, people are willing to spend thousands of dollars on ad placement. It's insane, you know. So you got to stay relevant in that aspect. And you see with Flex Lewis also just doing the podcast.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So what direction are you going to go in? Just educating, or are you going to take the shirt off at one point and start flexing your abs and doing these weird exercises that nobody needs?
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, that would be paying homage to Joe for those kinds of things. But even his exercises are they're really good too. Just very creative, right?
Very creative. Yeah. It's
so,
good to get the audience going, but sometimes it was, you know, for bodybuilders who would look at it and like, you know, okay, interesting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So my outlook on things is definitely to engage in the educator space first. And it's an interesting space because a lot of the guys that are established right now, you guys have an insane wealth of knowledge, and a lot of it is because you've researched for so long that you've now hyper specified into these
Right.
very particular areas. And so if you wanted to make, a super in-depth video on check drops, for example, you probably could. And then
Yeah.
Other guys where if they're coming to me for information, they're usually in that, 18, 25 age demographic. And they're looking for, I don't know anything about this. How do I get things going? How do I get a basic understanding? And so it's really just going to be that reintroduction and hammering in of the basics. And also when you guys bring up interesting topics or something that forwards the application of safer use, then that's something I can lean into, translate for a younger audience, and then
Right.
spread basically. Because as this is something I think is really important that a lot of people don't do, but even in my little document on my website, I have a list of all of these educators in the space, some that I like, some that I don't like, and at least just to put the information all out there and let them know these are all the sources of information. I want their knowledge to be widely distributed, right?
Right.
I'm basically acting as a catalyst for a lot of that. Beyond the education, I do really love bodybuilding. And so I'm wondering where I might be able to go there. Obviously, after I've done my first cycle, I know that I'm not going to be Ronnie Coleman, but, right. Darn. No way. Right. Shock surprise. Yeah.
Right.
If I was like 14 with 18-inch arms, then maybe that would be a different situation. But, just to push my body and see where I can get to, and then do little experiments and show the audience that you can do these things and you can manage side effects safely, and just to debunk certain issues about gear. It's like, well, I want to have kids in the future. Does that mean I can never use gear? It's like, no, actually, did you know that you can freeze your sperm? Like, that's an option, right? I think
wish somebody told me
that,
so I didn't have to go through this thousands of dollars fertility protocol right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
My fertility is great though, so I'm not too concerned.
Okay. Nice.
But yeah, like these little things. I mean, like I don't see like younger kids, 15, 18, maybe some of the 18 years old, but certainly the 15-year-old guys that are impressionable, that want to do their first cycle. I don't think they're listening to me because the level of entry, the barrier of sitting through a 20-minute video for me is super freaking high, right? So guys like you, I'm very welcome of. And if you can, kind of translate the message and just keep these guys engaged, because I don't think I would take advice from a 40-year-old if I was 15. It just seems that the age gap is so high. Like when I was 15, dude, I would listen to 18 years old and that's already old. And then after that, it's no, these guys are like grannies,
Yeah,
these guys are almost obsolete.
Yep.
And dude, when I was going to school at like 14, 15 years old, there were some guys that are 16, 17, and they would literally grab the whole hand into their steroid jar and grab the Dianabol or the Anadrol, and they didn't even know what they were taking. Yeah, they were beyond Diable only cycles, and this is over 20 years ago. And these guys would be huge, right? Puffy, acne, gyno, right? But the parents would all be powerlifters or bodybuilders themselves, and they had no idea that their kids would be taking steroids. They got it out of Thailand. Those 1,000 tablet bottles from Dianabol, 5 milligram tablets, and the kids would just take it, in school, and nobody would drug test them because they would look so big that everybody thought they were fat. And I really wonder what happened to all those kids that. Yeah, I really wonder what happened to all those classmates that took steroids back then, because they're not part of the fitness industry. I would have recognized them by now. Like, hey, wait a minute, we grew up, we were in class, we were at the same school. I think for a lot of these guys, it's just a phase. Social pressure, they want to look bigger, they want to impress the girls, right? They want to be like their Instagram stars, so they take some steroids, and then 2 or 3 years later, they're out of that phase, maybe with some health complications along the way or issues. Right. And then they're out. Like a lot of guys that I used to train with, they're already out. They don't even bodybuild anymore.
Right. That exact thing you're talking about with the younger guys listening to older guys. I have that issue all the time, and I try to explain that to certain people when the main mindset I think among younger guys is if you rewind time and you remember what you were like as a kid, it's like when someone tells you no, it just makes you want to do it more. Like, why would I listen to this person?
Of course. I was the same, dude. Yeah. That's how I made all my mistakes.
Exactly. And so unless someone is, and it's usually like an adult that's telling you no, and it's like, what do you understand about me at all? You're like 20, 30 years older than me, like buzz off, old man. And then you have someone, just like you're saying, like maybe you're a 15-year-old, some 18-year-old, it's someone that you actually look up to. And they're like, hey, listen, man, like I was in that position, or like, I know a lot about this and I don't think that's a good idea. Or if you do want to do that, here's something that you could do to not totally screw yourself. They're a lot more receptive to that. They're a lot more willing to open up and be like, okay, well, so I can't do a ridiculous amount of RAD 140 at age 15. Maybe if I'm using enclomiphene and a little older, then it's like less bad. Like they start to find at least at minimum a middle ground, because if you can't get them to fully say no and stop, you can try to help them out somewhere in that space. Maybe set them up with a PCT protocol if they don't want to go that route. Right.
Yeah. At least you're doing something for harm reduction, because most people will do it anyway, right? They will do it anyway. I see this in my comment section. I get the DMs, you give them advice. Yeah, especially the young kids when they do reach out, and then 3 months later they contact me with the blood work and they're fucked, and they can't afford a consultation, because I'm way too expensive for these young guys. But I see it happen all the time. You know what really troubles me are these height protocols. I know Leo used to talk about that, but I'm really against it, because you don't know the ramifications long term, and crushing your estrogen while you're undergoing puberty. I think it's a horrible idea, So I get these questions quite frequently. Like, Steve, what do you think about Arimidex or enclomiphene? And so I can grow longer. I'm on limited time because my growth plates are going to close. These kids are like 13 years old, dude. 14 years old. And I'm like, I said, listen, I can't help you because your parents will kill me. They'll literally sue my ass if I do help you. So this is very worrying nowadays with the information that's on YouTube, and it's for everybody, right? But these high protocols I think they're even more problematic than steroid protocols, because from the steroid protocols you recover, but if you crush your estrogen for a certain amount of months or even years while you're undergoing pubertal development, I mean, the cardiovascular system takes such a beating. And nowadays, the cardiovascular system, you should treat like it's a pair of testicles, even more. Yeah, because, I mean, with this day and age, you'll just die. I mean, I see it happen all the time. People with cardiovascular complications, and they just die because of the pandemic and stuff. So do you get a lot of these kids as well, your direct messages?
It's one of the most concerning things, because it's one thing, exactly like you're saying with steroids, where, the HPTA will recover. And obviously if you're younger, there's a lot of issues with that anyway. You're still in your developmental years. Your body is so sensitive to something like that. But with the height growth protocols, how important estrogen is to especially your brain and your heart and your entire body during the foundational developmental years of your life, why would you really want to be depriving yourself of that? And there is this idea that I talk about where it's important that if you are going to pursue something, you understand the risks and you accept them. I think honestly, the risks are of such great magnitude that people are, mistaking a few trees for the forest. They're not seeing how big of an issue it could actually be. Right. And they're just saying, well, that's okay. Am I going to grow 3 inches? Or like, oh yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, will I be 6 foot? And another thing that I've noticed is, I have a funny story about the whole height thing, is when I was in middle school, a girl rejected me because I was too short. And so I had this like whole
fuck. Dude, you should send her your TikTok subscribers now. Like, look at this. Look at what you're missing out on. Look at all these affiliate discounts, commissions that I'm getting.
So it was in my head, like all of high school. I'm like, wait, like, am I actually a short guy? Like, is this going to affect me? And I was so in my head about it. And then I graduate high school and I'm like, it doesn't actually matter that much. But when you're 13, you're 14, like any little thing is like, you're neurotic about it. Exactly.
It kills you. Yeah. Like I'm 5'9", right? So that's average height. But in Holland, everybody's like 6'1", 6'4". So I felt like a short kid. And I didn't realize that I was tall until I came to Thailand, and I literally tower over everybody. But this was 15 years ago. But now the middle class has, better financial status. So all of the kids that are growing up nowadays, they're all a foot taller than their parents because they have better food. Like all the parents, they just had a horrible food quality. So that keeps them short. And you'll see that now, like in Asia, like I'm average height here as well. But for a lot of guys that are feeling short, when you're a teenager and younger, it really matters, right? This height thing, because you think that all the women are only going to go after tall guys, and all these masculinity YouTube channels, they're all about talking about 6 foot, and thick beards They're all the same.
Yeah.
They're carbon copies of each other. These
Yeah.
masculinity channels. I think it's despicable, because you can determine success and masculinity in a multitude of different factors, especially on how many people's lives you can change positively.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys that fall for this masculinity stuff are kids without fathers, because they don't have a strong father figure in their life. But if you do have a strong father figure, you look at these masculinity channels and say, you need to be 6 foot, and you need to make $1 million, and you need to drive a sports car, and you need to have this, and all these assets that don't really matter in the long run. Yeah. They don't really know how to compare that to their own dad, because he either wasn't around or he was just not present in the education process. And I think that's also a lot where the young guys go wrong, because they look for guys like me or you as a little bit of a replacement father figure when it comes to the knowledge. Definitely. And then you tell them no, and that hurts.
Yeah. Yep.
They said, no, you can't do this. You can't do the cycle. You can't do an air overhauling cycle, because you will, and then you literally replace the dad that would also say no, and they get pissed, and they do it anyway. It's very difficult to kind of, get through to these kids, even though, you were smart enough to say no to the D-bol and testosterone only cycle, right?
Yeah.
So I do think there's outliers out there, but I think, you need to have it internally. Like, wait a minute, let me, take a step back, assess the situation, and then see what I can do.
Right. That's exactly what you're talking about with the father situation. Is no one looks at their dad, and if someone says, "Oh, describe your dad," and you say, "Oh, he's 6 foot," that's not really a marker of his character, like how good of a dad he was, right? So I think when you take a step back and you look at the situation on the whole, the height or the beard or whatever the factors are, that's not really how you're remembered. It's more how you carried yourself and what impacts you had on the world, and like what you contributed, especially to the people around you, but also to your kid's life. And so that's where, even as an influencer, if you look at yourself like that, where it's like, okay, I'm this metaphorical father to a lot of viewers, what do I provide them with? How do I treat them with care? And if they are coming to me with a really bad idea, how do I let them down easy? In my live streams, when people come to me, and a common question with young kids is like, hey, where do I buy testosterone? Where do I get the good stuff? So my immediate metaphor is always, I imagine that I'm a dad, and my 12-year-old son comes to me and asks if he can drive the Ferrari. My answer is no. There's no way you were driving the Ferrari. But if he's older and knows how to drive and is educated and has already, maybe driven something less special than that, then maybe I'd say, okay, go ahead.
And didn't break it.
Yeah. And so, because if you imagine it the opposite way around, if I say, no, you can't drive the Ferrari, they sneak into the garage, they grab the keys anyway, they go take it for a drive. What do you think's going to happen? They're going to flip the Ferrari, they're going to blow themselves up, right?
Yeah.
It's always how it's going to go.
Yeah. No, so the funny thing is, like, even most of the guys, if you let them down easily, I think they understand a little bit better. Yeah. But still, I wonder what happens to the guys that do it and then don't contact me with all the side effects. I probably go to somebody else, of course. But I do see it quite a bit still, and that is a little bit disappointing as an educator, because you do realize that you can't reach everybody and have them make the correct decisions. But I think there's also something to say for kind of, trial by combat or self-experimentation, and just getting your hands dirty and figuring out the higher truth on your own body and making some mistakes along the way. Because from my experience, after 25 years in the sport, the best way for bodybuilders and fitness people to learn is just to make the mistakes. Just to make the mistake. I should have never done. I should have listened to, Tanner or Steve or Paul or whoever else. I should have just listened. But then at least the respect is there. Like, wait a minute, these guys were right. I shouldn't have done that. Of course, hopefully, they don't get horrible side effects in the meantime, that they, that they really get an adverse reaction to the point they have to exit the fitness space, because that happens also quite a bit. Sometimes you meet these people like 2 years later and they completely give up. It's a shame to see.
Yeah. It's really sad.
How common is SARM use with the kids nowadays? Is it less than before, or are these kids still using a ton of SARMs?
It's actually been pretty interesting. I think it's definitely a popular option, because a lot of people see it as like a stepping stone to steroids. In some ways, maybe. In some ways, not really. But it's also been popular for guys to start using like things that don't have any effects on their HPTA. So MK677 in reasonable doses, so that they're not suppressing their testosterone through those was it prolactin feedback loops, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so other things like L-Carnitine, I've been a big proponent of, where you get the practice of intramuscular injection, and then you start to know, do I want to inject myself for probably the rest of my life? Like maybe, maybe not. Depends on
Yeah,
how
it's
bad
not a
it
big
sucks,
deal.
right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And
The,
then
the, the horrible thing about injectable carnitine is that it burns like a motherfucker. So a lot of guys, they'll probably have like, is this going to be every time I inject? When in reality, if you inject pharmaceuticals, like pharmaceutical steroids, the post-injection pain is maybe the first 5 injections in that site, and then it goes away.
right.
Your body gets used to it, unless you start digging into the underground labs. But with pharmaceuticals, but dude, I've been injecting carnitine for almost 2 years now, and it still burns.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sucks.
At least, you can use that as a bit of a barrier for entry. Then it's like, okay, if this burns, and then you finally make the switch, you're like, oh, like I've kind of earned it, right? It's nicer to be here.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. You went through hell already.
Yeah, and then I've seen also, enclomiphene only use for that. Any kind of oral thing that they can get their hands on and try that. And nasal spray applications for peptides has also become more popular. Yeah.
Okay. Good. So what is like the lowest entry cycle you can design for a guy that's like 18 years old, right? They have to do 18 because any younger, and we both get sued.
Right.
So depending on the state where you find yourself in or the country that you find yourself in, 18 is okay.
Right.
So what would be like a low entry first cycle for an 18-year-old that is not too invasive?
Right. And we're talking AAS. We're not doing like halfway.
Anything. Doesn't matter. Make it easy for these guys.
Right.
Give it away.
So the first thing I say is that everyone's body is different. So understand that first. I'm not going to tell you to a prescriptive dose that is just right for you. You might have to pick something and then make a little adjustment, right? Depending on what's right for you. Having some things on hand to control estrogen would be a very wise idea. Please don't be that guy that's scrambling to source Arimidex because, your nipples are blown out and whatever horrible things are going on, right? The dosing that I'm most favorable towards is a milligram per kilogram approach. It's just because I really like Broderick as a person. He's a funny guy. He has some questionable opinions on other things. That's fair. But I do like his approach there. So it would be like probably somewhere around the 3 milligrams per kilogram for any man, like as a weekly dose. And depending on how high that is, if you're on the overweight side, then you might need to bridge up to that dose. You don't want to have any crazy hormone fluctuations as you're first going into anything. And as that cycle progresses, week 4, things start to peak. Week 8, you start like seeing the benefits. Make sure that you're getting blood work at about like halfway through the cycle. I think I would agree with, and just monitor and see, how do you feel on it, right? Maybe you're that kind of person that you really like the propionate ester of testosterone. You might need to make a switch there. I know Blue Taylor, that bodybuilder, he really likes prop, but then an anthate and cypionate, he feels horrible on for whatever reason, right? And I know you've talked about how like certain carrier oils and other things of the sort can definitely affect how a person feels just by using this. So although you might have a bad first experience, maybe it's not actually the testosterone, but maybe it's the quality of your testosterone. Maybe you want to start investigating a pharma grade source, something like that. So, that's how I would approach it. And honestly, the most important thing is to be kind to yourself throughout the process. Because I think in my field, especially, I mostly deal with the mental side of people going into a cycle expecting something insane, something crazy, right? My arms are going to blow up and put 2 inches on them. My shoulders are going to be bowling balls.
I wish.
Take it easy. You are going to grow a little faster, but it's not going to be like absolute night and day difference unless you do have the genetics for it. There's absolutely people who grow like that. So I tell guys to just honestly be nice to themselves as they go into that process.
Do you really see that a lot where kids are so hard on themselves that they kind of self-sabotage throughout the cycle or even before that? Because, bodybuilding, you're always self-scrutinizing, this needs to be bigger, that needs to be bigger. But how is it like with the younger guys? Because I can't remember being very insecure when I was younger. But maybe that's also because it's such a long time ago in a different day and age where we didn't get exposed to social media and everybody was shredded.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest contributing factors. The main result of it is that I see people try to lean into the gear as a like I'm not getting results fast enough. That means I need more. And so, they might be halfway into their cycle and they double their doses or they add a large dose of something else. They basically just make their cycle way more aggressive because they're not seeing the results that in their head they expected from it. They might see, some influencer of theirs say, oh, here's my first cycle. Like I'm documenting everything for you guys. When in reality, they were on cycle anyway, and they're now doing a like third or fourth or fifth cycle.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
so it really, really, really distorts their perception on things. And so the sabotage they might do is just like look into bigger doses or look for that next big thing that's going to make them explode. Like, oh, I need growth hormone or, oh, I need Increlex, right? It's always that like next thing until eventually you realize you just don't have the genetics for it, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Or the money. I mean, it's not cheap to run a cycle correctly, with the blood work and the ancillaries and all the micromanagement that you need to do. Man, I feel bad for all these young dudes nowadays because they have it a lot tougher than I did. Yeah. I didn't have access to the information, so it was hard to piece it together. And I didn't have the social pressure because literally nobody was in shape around me. I was the only one going to the gym, maybe besides a couple guys that were on steroids already. So there's maybe five kids in the whole school that were going to gym and everybody else would do soccer or some other team sport. And then you go to the gym and everybody's also on steroids and they're like, you know what? Earn it. Shut the fuck up, little boy. You got to do, that's what they said. You got to deadlift 5 plates first and squat 4 plates and bench 3 plates first. I never got to those 3 plates on the bench, but I did do my 5-plate deadlift and 4-plate squat. 2 reps doesn't count. But you had to earn it. Back then, but now it's all online and nobody has to earn it anymore. And I think it's really messing with the mental state of some of these guys. I mean, I see it in my inbox as well. And I'm sure in your inbox, it's a little bit more pronounced because you're closer to these younger dudes.
Yeah.
And man, we should kind of do like some sort of therapy channel for these guys, how to deal with their self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to these young guys, I mean, they have so much social pressure, right? They have access to all of the information, but they're also very likely to jump the gun based on the information that they think they know. Do you think they're financially secure enough to afford everything that's required? Because I remember when I was like 15, 16, 17, 18, and even though I went to the gym, I thought about taking steroids, obviously, but I didn't feel ready. But the main drawback for me was just I didn't have fucking money to.
Yeah.
I didn't have any money at that time, and you live with your parents, you do a part-time job, you make like a little bit over minimum wage. And then of course the partying and the drinking and, from Holland. So weed smoking, recreational drugs, all that nonsense, right? That's all a phase that you have to go through in your life. But besides that, I didn't have any money for steroids. And maybe it's because the only guys that would sell steroids all were in that part of that underground scene of pharmaceuticals. So an ampule of test was like €8. And you're like, €8? I can buy 3 beers for that.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Right.
Like what is it like nowadays? Because I can't imagine, how much money the kids have available for this kind of stuff.
So it definitely varies. You'll meet some people who are so committed and so dedicated. They eat, sleep, live, and breathe bodybuilding, and for them, they're going to find some way to make it work. And they know that blood work is important, and they're going to do everything they can, working overtime, skipping the parties, skipping the the drinking and whatever, to go out and to get their bloods done. So there are people who make it happen, absolutely. But then there are people who they look at their budget and they say, well, I can't really get a full panel. Like, what if I just get the non-sensitive testosterone? Like, what if I just, skimp on this, skimp on that? And eventually, before you know it, you're working with a skeleton of what you actually should be looking at. Right.
Right.
And the gear is another thing where to get quality sourcing stuff, there's a little bit of a price involved, but then there's also like, I could get like from a bulk source from underground. It's like pennies per vial. Okay. Now it's, is your body going to handle that properly? Like, what's the quality of that like? There's a lot of questions that are floating around. So you could definitely do a budget cycle, but you are exposing yourself to more risk kind of as a result of that. And so maybe it might be better if you just wait, get a little more financially stable, and then you can fully get into this hobby from a better point.
I can get behind that. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I waited that long, because I never felt financially secure enough to deal with all the, the expenses that came along with it. Because I did blood work every year when I was still drug free, I could just get it on as part of my insurance, right? We have insurance in Holland and the rest of Europe. So you can go in for blood work once per year. Now, this blood work didn't include any of the numbers or concentration. So you just had numbers on paper, but no real reference ranges. So you're like 25? What?
Yeah. Wow. That's really weird.
And they would barely print it out. They would just tell you your blood work looked good. So I would always have to go in with an excuse, doctor or a primary healthcare physician, not a doctor, right? The guy just knows a little bit about a lot of different subjects. The house doctor, right? Yeah. And I would just say that my libido is low. I feel depressed. I don't feel good, blah, blah, blah. Just to really play the victim for him to do as many tests as I could squeeze within that, insurance that I had. But testing testosterone or estradiol, or maybe you get total estrogens if you're lucky. So you get the estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And it was such a headache, dude. And I can imagine for kids, just not having the confidence to do blood work, because it's difficult to navigate these doctors that are just reactive and not preventative.
Right. Yeah.
Like what we need to do is preventative. We want to check the blood work parameters before we get our hands dirty, and then during and after, right, to see if we recovered from the post-cycle therapy. But I think when you're younger, it's such a roadblock to deal with an old doctor, and old, I'm saying over 30.
Yeah.
That's old for these guys that are in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And they might have been bodybuilding since they were 15 years old, just like I do. They've put in 6 solid work years, right? Maybe they're ready financially and mentally and got educated. But then the blood work is a huge issue. And I think that's really a shame because, in America, it might be easier through American Health or some of the other clinics to just do basic blood work. But dude, you go somewhere else, like in Holland, almost impossible, dude. I had to play like clinically depressed to get my blood work done every time. And I'm sure in other countries it's even worse. Like if I look at my old blood work from Holland, it doesn't make any sense because you don't even know what the reference ranges are. Yeah, they try to keep you dumb, dude. They try to keep you dumb. It's despicable.
It's been nice. There are private blood work firms out in the US so that people can just pay out of pocket, show up somewhere, get their bloods drawn, and then there's no hassle. So it's a lot more accessible for younger guys. You don't have to deal with convincing your doctor to try and get this test, or it's like, well, I don't know if we should be doing that test. You're like, please, I feel horrible. Give me this, give me that. And then eventually you can milk it out of them, just like you're saying.
Right.
That's tough. I mean, especially if you imagine being like an 18-year-old kid, or God forbid, there's even younger kids who get on cycle, trying to imagine them, fighting with their doctor for a certain blood marker. Why would you even bother?
I can even picture it in front of me. Like it's like some 16-year-old kid wanted to do an oral only cycle, but at least smart enough to do some baseline blood work.
Yeah.
And he goes into the doctor, barely any hair on his chest, or face for that matter. And then arguing for the doctor. I mean, I was the same, but I didn't want to do a cycle. I just wanted to see if I was healthy or not.
Yeah.
But just arguing to get that sensitive testosterone test and the sensitive estradiol test done, just to make sure that they're in the green. Yeah. Oh man, these kids are tough nowadays, man. They should be happy with guys like you just trying to educate them and making it a little bit more digestible. Because, I mean, watching me is probably just too cumbersome already,
I don't know. I mean, blessing and a curse, having all that information. I know, because we were talking about the first podcast I was on with Justin Harris. Right. He talked about how he didn't even know steroids was a thing. And so I think there's some like unbelievable video of him squatting like 5 plates for 20 reps or something. And he wasn't even on gear at the time because he didn't know what it was. And so if you imagine a landscape where you see these really jacked guys, the only way to get there, you think, is just to train harder and find a better diet. That's quite a healthy approach for the first couple of years. And then you realize down the line, oh, there is an enhancement that I can take. Well, now you're in a really great position where you've already built that baseline, and then you go from there. But nowadays, it's like, within the first couple months of lifting, you've got videos suggested on your For You page on TikTok, like, oh, she broke up with me. It's time to do Tren. And you're like, what's Tren? I don't know.
Oh my God. Then you're like 17 years old and you're like, what is this Tren? You go to Google. Oh, this sounds exciting. Yeah. You go to Reddit, read all the steroid reports. And then you have the Tren twins to kind of guide you along the way. It's like a recipe for disaster, no?
Yeah. And so it's just so easily accessible, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing in that sense, where it's like the second the human brain knows that there's a shortcut, I think it kind of forgets the hard work on the other end of things. Because always in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I could just make this easier. Like, what am I doing working my ass off for minimal results? Why am I not enhanced? Why don't I just get on already? Right. So
Yeah.
that haunts guys, really.
No, I know. And the funny thing is about Trenbolone, which is, of course, glorified everywhere nowadays, is that Trenbolone, you can do everything wrong, nutrition-wise, training-wise, cardio-wise, supplementation-wise, and you'll still get fucking results. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's reports out there of guys on Reddit that take Tren and don't even train, and they get leaner and more muscular. I mean, that's the same what happens to cattle, right? That's why Trenbolone was prescribed in livestock, just to increase feed efficiency. So they eat the livestock food, grass, hay, whatever, and some antibiotics, obviously, or a lot of corn, right? That's the Western livestock diet. And they get this Finaplex injected with a little bit of estrogen, at least to compensate. At least the guys for livestock realize that estrogen is important for growth.
And then we don't, right? We're dumber than
cows.
We don't.
No, we take all the estrogen out and then just inject the Trenbolone acetate. And then you see this cattle just grow and grow and grow. And the comparison between livestock that's not on Trenbolone or Finaplex and livestock on Trenbolone, it's night and day. It's night and day. And all they do is walk around the field just eating or worse, just, somewhere where they're all caged up and they still get jacked. So that's why it's so popular, because you can do everything wrong. You don't need a foundation. You don't need knowledge. All you have to do is inject and deal with the side effects. And then, of course, some people will run up to 700 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams. Don't worry, I've been there. I've been at 1,000 milligrams per week for 4 weeks, and I almost died. Not literally, but just I was walking side effects. But yeah, I mean, the results that you get, and luckily I already had, a foundation of 11 years drug-free.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine what it's like just to hop on the train. I mean, Derek has made many videos about all these young kids just going on cycle and their voice gets super low and, they get acne and gyno and cystic acne to the point the whole skin explodes. It's crazy to see. I don't think it will ever go away, though. Do you think there will be a point in time where everybody starts to wisen up and then suddenly all the teenage D-ball gangsters are gone?
I think the compounds definitely flux up and down in terms of popularity. It's almost like like fashion styles, where certain drugs are popular for a certain amount of time, and then they kind of fade out of popularity, and then they come back into popularity. Primobolan, for example, is definitely on the popular side right now.
My
and
bad.
There was yeah. Well, you love it so much. I mean, you're not going to lie to people about it. So
no, I love Primo.
Exactly. And so there's also been that period of time when on the forums people were like, "Oh, Primobolan's weak. Like, what are you doing messing around with that stuff for?" And then it comes back, and people start realizing, "Oh, I don't know. It actually does have some applications." And I think that was kind of just the growing pains of the enhancement world, where people think this is really good and then this is really good. But I imagine there's going to be a point at which it normalizes and everyone realizes that, hey, this is good for certain things, obviously genetics dependent. And then you start kind of stratifying every compound like that, and then picking and choosing from your little toolbox, depending on what your goals are. Trenbolone, as much as it's going to be notorious because of the side effects and what it does to people mentally, you've seen all of Derek's horror story Reddit post videos there.
I've been there. It was my wife gave me an ultimatum. She's like, it's you or it's a Tren or the marriage.
Yeah.
You can choose. Right? Not to that extent, but she's like, I came off Tren. I think that last cycle was like 350 or 225 milligrams per week, which is, modest.
Yeah.
And she's like, do you like yourself better off the Tren? I'm like, where are we going with this? She's like, I like you better off the Tren. You're like a much better person, much kinder, much more patient. The night sweats she could deal with and that kind of shit. It's just on my side of the bed. But I realized, like, on Tren, you don't even know how much of a dickhead you are. And then you get off of it. And if you have your significant other who can monitor you throughout the entire Tren cycle, and they'll let you know, it's like, hey, you're a much better person. And she has that Thai tactfulness, where they kind of manipulate you with sweet words and you just let it happen. Not the Western girls. The Western girls are so direct, like, fuck you, you're on Tren, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
The Thai girls are a little bit more tactful. The Thai girls are a little bit more tactful. So she was very, very kind in how she approached it. And then it made me, she formulated it in a way to make me think it was my own idea. So I stopped Tren. And honestly, my life has been 10 times better. And all the gains, I made so many more gains after that. I mean, I think the heaviest I got to was like 105, 108 kilos. That's 220, 230, 235. And then off the Tren years later with insulin and growth hormone and IGF-1 and all that stuff and high test, I think I came up to like 255, 260. Much healthier, much better blood work, right? But it's also more cumbersome because, if you run a boatload of Tren, again, if you make a mistake, you miss a meal or you double a meal, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You'll still jack.
The relationships and gear is something that I found that no one really tells you about until you end up on it. And it's,
divorced and single.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so you'll see these little stories and you're like, no, like that's not really going to be me. Right. And then even me, man, like I do my first cycle and I jumped straight to 300 milligrams of testosterone. And for reference, my natural testosterone was 301 nanograms per deciliter total test.
Oh, wow. So you went 10x.
Yeah, pretty much. And so the spike I wasn't expecting. I was like, yeah, 300 is pretty low. I probably don't need a bridge to that. I guess I probably did because the estrogen fluctuation, like there's like a day where I'm like on the corner of the road, like crying. And then I'm yelling at my roommates. And then I'm like thinking that I don't really like my girlfriend at the time. And I'm like, we can't do this anymore. I'm breaking up with you. Like just so all over the place. Did not expect like mood swings like that. But I think people focus a ton on the physical side effects. The mental ones are a lot harder to quantify, but this stuff can like really reorient your life if you're not bracing yourself for it.
It's very true. Like, and especially when you start at 300 nanograms per deciliter and then you go to 3000, which is give or take where most people end up on 300 milligrams, of steroids per week. It's a 10x. So it heightens your emotions 10x. And it's the same with alcohol. People think that they're just normal on alcohol, right? No. Same shit. All your emotions get heightened. You drink alcohol when you're sad and you're going to be sadder. And you drink alcohol when you're celebrating and you're celebrating hard, right? Party hard.
Yep.
It's the same with steroids, but the difference is on alcohol, you just have one day. On steroids, you have 12 weeks, 16 weeks.
Yep.
Blasting and cruising for 10 years like I did, you don't even come off. So you're always in this heightened state and then coming off of that. And then you realize, is my emotions blunted? Am I like apathic? Anhedonia? That kind of stuff? Because you've been in this heightened state for such a long time that you come down. And it's a big difference. I mean, coming off the last cycle, which was about a gram of steroids combined, and then coming down to HCG and FSH for fertility purposes. I mean, it's a huge difference. I mean, the drive isn't there, and the libido isn't there, and the motivation isn't there, and just the decision-making process, like a finite decision-making process that you have on TRT or more, isn't there. So you kind of go in circles, like, should I do this? Should I do that? It's very confusing. Even when you're 40 years old, man, it will still be the same. So I can't imagine what it's like when you're younger because, I mean, I did have that, I think when I was 26, when I went on cycle, but my life kind of changed because the business consultancy field was going bankrupt. Was in an economic crisis, just like it is an economic crisis now. I decided to stop that being employed and then doing my own thing. So my cycle, I was literally full-time bodybuilding for the first time in my life because I didn't have any other obligations. So I could kind of deal with it because there was no roller coaster and I had enough money in the bank. But I think when you start like that young and then you're still going to school and trying to impress girls and the girl tells you that you're short, even though you're fucking wet. Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's probably hard to deal with, So did you make up with your girlfriend after going through that roller coaster on your first cycle?
There's been some roller coasters since then. So, not really, but it's things come and go anyway. And that's another temptation is to always blame the gear for things where it's like, do I actually have feelings for her or is it because I'm on cycle or, I have some friends who they tell me about their NPP experience and I don't know the meaning of this, but they seem to be very attracted to the higher body fat percentage women.
Yeah, the fat chicks.
Yeah.
On nandrolone and trenbolone, man, it goes down. I don't know if all this progesterone makes you just want to spread the love and the semen around, but no, I see that here in Thailand, it's even worse because you have all these guys on trenbolone, right? They're trying to recomp. They go to Thailand for their steroid holiday. And they bang trannies.
Yeah.
And they say, I can't help myself on this trend. I just want to fuck the ladyboys. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? It's a
Ah,
common joke, you know. You take them out to the entertainment area and say, "What about this bar, Cockatoo?" So, what do you think that bar is about? You know, the banana bar. What do you think this bar is about? I said, I want to
ah,
have a look. And then you can't drag them out of it. And
ah,
then 6 weeks later, they're off the train and they feel embarrassed.
exactly. They think back on everything they've done and they're like, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all of it comes back to you. You're like, I guess I did do that. Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a,
But all those sophomore girls that are a little bit chunky, they love the guys on Tren, probably. Well, because they finally get a little bit of action, piece of the pie as well. They're banging all the short dudes on Tren.
yeah. Everyone gets the love. It all balances out, right? It's great.
Yeah. Same as well. When I was younger, we used to go to these raves, and then you have MDMA, right? They're the recreational drugs, and it's the same. Right? You get all lovey and feely, and
Right.
a 6 looks like an 8, and a 4 looks like a 7, and it's like, that's good enough. And it's dark, right? You don't see anything. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to live with that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, the rave culture has been very popular, overlapped with bodybuilding. I imagine there was a lot of overlap back in the day. You know, people want to look good for the raves, and so they get into it there. But it's definitely been alive and well, even into the modern age. And it's really delicate to deal with because you have these guys that are basically peaking for a rave like it's a show. You know, why you banging all these orals in your body and you're really like redlining yourself, and then you're going to go dance in a hot crowd for like 8 hours straight. That's a
With
recipe for
MDMA
disaster.
and or
Yeah, all
coke
the
or
rec drugs.
oxygenate
Jeez,
drug.
man.
Which again, I'm not against, because I can't preach, because I used to take reg drugs when I was younger, but I stopped by the time I went the bodybuilding route. So I did all my partying and all these raves. I mean, Holland, the raves are gigantic, dude. We had the biggest
Phenomenal,
raves.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
50,000 people. It was unheard of back then. 70,000. Besides the Love Parade, which was in Germany, that's 1,000,000 people. 1,000,000 people following these buses around. Yeah. It's crazy part. And drugs would have been handed out readily because Holland produces that. So you can get ecstasy tablets for €1 or for a guilder. That's the previous currency. It was so cheap, dude.
Yeah.
Right. And then high purity too. So we're talking about 70 milligrams, not 200 milligrams like you need to take nowadays.
Yeah.
It's, and you see a lot of people, exactly like you said, you either come from the recreational drug phase, where the entry to steroids is easier because you're used to taking drugs. So you go from one drug to the next. And then instead of going to all these raves and partying and meeting people there, you go to the same thing, but in the gym, right? Going to the gym multiple times per day. You're very social, very active, talking with people all the time, hitting up girls. So it's the same as what you would do with raves. Yeah. And then the drug of choice changes from recreational to performance enhancing. It's, I mean, there's clear correlation. It works the other way also, backwards. Ask Dorian Yates.
Yeah.
I mean, he did it the other opposite way, right? He went from hardcore bodybuilding from 18 to, early 30s. He won all these Mr. Olympias, and now he's doing recreational drugs and coke and ayahuasca and whatever else. And now he's a full yogi doing yoga. You go through these phases in life, but you're right. I mean, the threshold to do something else is so much lower. I do think there's something to say for all of it, because you can enrich your personality as long as you don't do it too frequently. Because all the people that I know that used to rave and are still going out and they did recreational drugs for decades, ooh, that's rough, dude. Those guys.
Yeah. You're chasing a dying high. I mean, at a certain point, your body's sensitivity to it is just basically shot. Especially if you're going to keep like bumping up the number of pills that you're taking every weekend. You're just chewing them like little gummy bears at that point. And what are you really getting out of that besides damage?
Not much. No. Yeah. No. And these guys can't stop because they're semi-addicted to the whole dance culture,
Yeah.
It's, I think Nyle Nayga does it really, really well because he likes a rave as well. And he's on performance enhancing drugs, but during that time, he doesn't really take Rex. And then he just goes out with his food and Tupperware and protein and just dances for 8 hours. And that's how he stays lean.
Yeah, get the cardio in, exactly.
He gets the cardio in, it's hilarious. And then on his story, he's just sharing what he's doing, and he's not intoxicated at all. Right? Yeah. Usually by the time it's 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, the jaws start going all over the screen with most party goers. The pupils go.
I love the rave scene. Although I've definitely been going sober, and I do like it quite a bit. So I really like Nyle being in that space and saying something positive about. You can still go out and have a really good time, You don't need to be taking every drug under the sun to enjoy it and to be fully a part of that scene. It's really cool.
Exactly. You can be like the trip sitter, for most guys who drive them
Yeah.
home. And then if you do want to take something, okay, that's fine. We just come off everything. I think you can only do so much damage to your body at one time. So if you're completely off, right, or maybe just TRT, and you want to do something in the comfort of your home or go to a rave, that's totally fine. But don't expect to look like Ziz at the rave where you're all jacked and tanned and super shredded, and you can take your shirt off for all the girls or walk around shirtless and get all this attention, because it just doesn't go well together at the same time. I mean, I knew guys that would take clenbuterol 120 micrograms per day all the way up to the rave and then take MDMA. I mean, imagine how much heart damage you're inducing.
Yeah, your heart's going to explode at that point. I mean,
and then dancing for 8 hours, not eating, of course.
Yeah.
It did look good, though, but for how long? I don't think it's sustainable at all.
No, it's not.
Do you get questions like this from younger people that are in both fields, like in the fitness field and the rave field, and are trying to manage it? Because I rarely see it where people do both, like what Nyle is doing. But he does it smartly, right? I mean, he's focusing on his career and he's not missing a beat on social media. But
I would say there's definitely a demographic for it. There are plenty of guys like Nyle, and they do have really big social media followings. And so kind of within their space, they're probably the ones who are getting the questions where it's like, hey, me and my buddies are going out. I'm on cycle. I'm on this. I'm on that. Like, what do you think I should do here? And it would be cool if I get to a point where, as I'm out more frequently and I'm posting more often, the kind of stuff that I like to enjoy, then people could come to me for those kinds of questions and say, hey, I do like doing a little recreational this. Like, what should I consider? Like, should I stop my clenbuterol? Yes, but all of these other things that they need
don't
to
take
consider.
It's Viagra, because I mean, you can use Dan Bilzerian as a perfect example, right? He took Coke and Viagra together. He had a heart attack.
Yeah, exactly. So
and that's not uncommon, for guys to do that. It's pretty brutal.
That is something that's been really popular with younger guys lately, is using PDE5 inhibitors as pre-workouts. So Cialis and Viagra, they like to use before the gym. They get really good pumps from it. All the vasodilation is awesome. There's definitely a couple things to be careful of if you're going to be using that, especially if you're naturally a hypotensive person. You don't want to be passing out in the gym because you took too much tadalafil, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you can thank me and Skip Hill for that one.
Yeah, that was you guys.
Yeah. Ken Skip Hill was one of the first guys to talk about it, and John Meadows. I mean, this is an older crowd. John Meadows passed away, unfortunately, but Ken Skip Hill's he's the original internet coach. The original.
Yeah, he's on Think Big Bodybuilding.
Yeah, really exactly. Right. So you used to have his website Intense Muscle, where Dante Trudell and many of the fitness or bodybuilders used to kind of gravitate and share information. I was just always too scared to register because these guys would be brutal online. So I would just read. Anyway, so Ken Skip Hill kind of introduced, the Cialis as a pre-workout, and then I kind of rolled with it after my own experimentation over the years and brought it to a bigger audience. And now it's very, very popular. But yeah, of course it can cause some side effects if you're not, don't understand sodium or blood volume, or you start combining that with something like Gorilla Mode Nitric or some of these other pump products,
Yeah.
And you just faint. I mean, how many kids are fainting on the deadlift nowadays because of this pre-workout cocktail? I'm wondering.
Right. Or bad form. I mean, you see a plethora of different issues. That is where I first saw it. It was Derek's video. He has the little bottle of Gorilla Nitric and the little pill of Cialis, and it's his thumbnail. And then he explains, vasodilation and nitric oxide, all that good stuff. So, but then obviously the downsides of it, where, you open your blood vessels a little too much, then you're in the danger zone. But for guys who are on gear, it's not that bad. I mean, you're probably already hypertensive at that point.
Yeah, and we train a lot harder than the naturals because, all this steroids just make you train harder, and you can go to failure and beyond. And that's why it's so fun to train on steroids and not fun when you come off steroids.
Yeah.
Because, your workout quality is just 10 times better. I mean, the last time I had a good workout was, February? Like within the first 4 weeks after. That's horrible, right? So February, I had a good workout. I stopped steroids beginning of this year, right, for the fertility protocol, and then you have like 4 weeks, 6 weeks left that these, steroids are still active in your system, and then after that, everything is kind of meh, and this is where the addiction basically comes in, because as soon as that starts to happen, and your workouts go down, the recovery comes down, and even though you're super meticulous with your diet and the training program, and you go from a 5-day bro split to a push-pull legs, because otherwise you don't recover, right? You keep reps in reserves. And then over 6 months, you look in the mirror and you're like, you can't even recognize yourself. You're just fat. And you're like, what the hell is going on? You're just unhappy with how you look. And then you wonder, like, why am I even going to the gym? Because you're going to the gym partially for physical appearance, right? And to look healthy and fit. And then it all falls apart. Even my testosterone levels right now are like 600, 700 nanograms per deciliter, but that's from the HCG. But it's not enough to sustain the muscle mass and the metabolism and all that stuff. It's pretty rough. You know, it's pretty rough. Do you have guys in your inbox after the first cycle they do PCT and then everything fell apart?
Oh,
I'm sure that happens a lot too.
Maybe not so much like it falls apart, but they're always asking, you know, like, how much muscle do I keep on PCT? You know, how much muscle am I going to keep after the cycle?
0.
And it's like, you know, if I'm honest with you, it's not really a good answer. And so going from there are guys where once they're done with their cycle, they're like immediately thinking about their next one. They're asking me like, how long do I really have to wait before I get on my cycle again? Like, you know, can I do like 2 weeks? Can I do like 3 weeks? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, take it easy. Like, make sure your blood work's at least good before you're going to get back on cycle again.
Right.
All the metabolites are still in your system. You're not even off cycle, really.
I mean, Novadex and Clomid, if you use that for PCT, it's still active for 45 days after your last administration. So even within 45 days, if your testosterone levels are still high, you need to wait 3 months after you finish your post-cycle therapy just to see if your post-cycle therapy was even successful. Yeah, I've got so many videos and an ebook about post-cycle therapy, and people still do it wrong, right? Long story short, you need to let all these drugs metabolize. Then you can start your PCT, right? Consisting of HCG, or maybe you run that throughout. Or at least the testicular function is sustained, but you need all these metabolites to be out of your system for the negative feedback to stop. And then you can stimulate the feedback with these SARMs. So in that case, it works, but most guys still go with this cookie cutter internet PCT. Testosterone intake to stop the injections, you run HCG. Now your testosterone levels are still high by the time you start PCT. Right? These are still active in your system, actively suppressing. And even though if you do a high dose of Novadex and Clomid, by the time you finish your 4 weeks Novadex and Clomid, this testosterone annotate that you injected 6 weeks ago still active, and the estrogen is still there, still causing a negative feedback. Yeah, it's quite painful. And then they want to go back on cycle 2 weeks later. So they basically had 8 weeks between the last testosterone injection and going back on cycle. Nothing happens in between besides liver stress. You know, and clotting.
Crash your HPTA and then like try and force it back up, and then you're crashing it again because you're getting on cycle again. Yeah. You know, at that point, you'd better just be blasting and cruising, or just at least doing like a low dose, long term cycle, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. But it's of course that's a lot of commitment, and people don't want to realize this. What I do see is a lot of guys that they want to get to their natural potential faster by taking steroids and then maintain it. Yeah. This is another one of those, like, just like a height protocol, right? Like I'm 18 years old. I want to be as big as I can naturally, and I'm going to take steroids as to attain it and then maintain. Dude, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. I mean, I should post my picture online now of how I look, and then people realize, like, wait a minute, it's not sustainable at all. I mean, to be fair, did you see those pictures when I went to Bali like a couple of weeks ago?
I don't think so.
Okay. No. So I was off cycle for maybe 4 months, and I was really motivated and regimented, and I still trained hard and ate right, and actually got leaner in the meantime, and then remained a little bit of fullness. So I went from about 105 kilos to 92. So I lost 13 kilos. I mean, 13 kilos, that's 25 pounds went down after taking the steroids out. But I still had decent shape, right? And then after that, I couldn't sustain it. I increased my food a little bit, and just everything fell apart. So there is a window of time that you can sustain your shape, probably because you're motivated, or these metabolites are still active, and you know all the metabolic processes are still activated, even though the steroids are out of your system. Yeah. But there will come a point in time where you look like ass. Yeah, and the people who don't look like ass are still on something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just one of the biggest things is people say, "Oh, well, like so and so came off, like he still looks great." Did he really come off?
I mean, I came off 100% and I looked good up until a certain point, and then it fell apart. Yeah. You know, now I have to kind of come back again. So there's no progress pictures on my Instagram, for a while.
Right. I know that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. I mean, the body is very dynamic when you start taking steroids. You need to be
Yeah.
mentally mature to kind of deal with that. Like for me, it's not a problem anymore. I've
Right.
gone through this process of getting smaller, getting bigger, getting leaner, getting fatter.
Yeah.
It's just all part of the game. But I think when you do your first cycle and you get in phenomenal shape, and then everything after that, after getting in phenomenal shape, you look worse.
Mm.
Then because now you have this extreme high, right, of looking crazy.
Yeah.
And now everything after that is like less than.
Right.
And then you're kind of chasing that high, the same as, going to parties.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all relative. And so, it's that same feeling. You're on cycle. You feel amazing. You feel like Superman. And then you become normal man again. You're like, well, I know what it's like to be Superman. Like, what am I doing just hanging around here for? It is nice that, I'm blessed in my personal experience where I've never had that many issues with my self-perception or like with my own progress. And so it's really nice that I can come from that standpoint and tell guys, if you are going to get on cycle and you're going to blast and cruise, you're going to PCT, there's going to be ebbs and flows in what your physique looks like. You can't always look peak cycle all the time without adding a lot of stress to your body. And so there's that balancing act between, how much are you going to take? How much are you going to balance that? How are you going to stay healthy while you're pursuing that goal physique? And are you going to be okay with knowing that it's a snapshot in time? You're not always going to look like the best version of yourself. Dorian Yates has had to use a lot of psychedelics, just like we were talking about, to basically become okay with the fact that he's not the shadow anymore. He's an ordinary man in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to get out of reality quite a bit to kind of deal with it. Yeah. And there's something to say for that as well, when the time is right. I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form, trust me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it does take some, either some, hardcore self-reflection and ego destruction before you come to terms with that. And it can be very tough. I mean, I see it now in the older demographic, like all these guys that are now turning 40 and they can't maintain their shape and they're very insecure about how they look. And all they had was bodybuilding, or all they had was looking exceptional. And now they can't sustain it and they don't know what else to do, right? Their entire existence depends on the reflection. And it's very painful to watch. I mean, I think Fuad Abiad is coming to terms with it now, but I think for many years, after he got his kidney injuries and some of those muscle tears, I mean, I think he was a mental wreck. And it comes across at the podcast quite a bit, especially in the beginning. Now he's doing better with it, but and then you see with Jay Cutler, for example, he can't let it go either. Now he's doing the Fit for 50, but I think Jay Cutler is still in a good state of health, or at least based on how he looks.
Right.
So you can sustain your health if you have like awesome genetics for abuse.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, those guys don't do small cycles, but they can just tolerate the drug.
Yeah. Yep. You get the consistency of a horse. You're fine. So
that also helps. Yeah, that also helps. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Exactly.
For sure. So what you say to the younger audience? Like, what are the key takeaways of just, doing it right? Like, besides the first cycle, like, what do you think is the foundation for these guys if they're like below 25 years old? What do they need to do just to don't mess themselves up? Couple key takeaways.
Right. So one of the key things I think is to first prioritize education. So you're going to start from a standpoint of with anything really, if before you do something, you should know as much as you can reasonably know about it. Even driving a car, you're not just going to get into a car for the first time, know nothing about it and just say, well, I'll figure it out. You should definitely get to a point where you at least know what button does what, right? Get to a point where you're comfortable with it. And then the second point I would say is risk acceptance, where you got to look at all of the risks and ask yourself and be honest with yourself, am I going to be okay with maybe not having kids, assuming that, your fertility isn't tackled and all of that? Am I going to be okay with maybe losing my hair or getting back acne or all of these other side effects? Though they can be mitigated, you should be ready just in case you're not able to, nip them in the bud before they explode out of control, right? And then beyond that, one of the most important things that I like to tell guys is, because some people will say, oh, like I'm thinking about doing a cycle, but I don't know, I'm scared of needles, or I'm scared of this, or I'm scared of that. The bottom line is, before you get into that, there should be zero doubts in your mind. There shouldn't be even a fraction of a doubt. You should not have like a little bit of a, well, what if, or what if I did this? You should be going into it basically like, I'm ready. I know that this is the life for me. I know what that life looks like, all the ups and downs of it, everything that's included, the financial cost, because that's no joke. And then you do that first pin and you're like, all right, I'm in it. And
Right.
there's obviously ways to come out of that, but I think it differs, especially with guys who, in my position, my natural testosterone is very low.
Mhm.
I'm in this for life. There's not really that big of an option for me to do an HCG monotherapy. I don't know how well I would respond to that.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking at it more of a maybe TRT for life is right for me. I don't know. What are
Right.
your thoughts on that?
So what I see with a lot of young kids nowadays, when they're, or not kids, I mean, compared to me kids, right? So guys are like, 17 up till 25, and they're thinking about doing their first cycle. They do their baseline testosterone level, and they're like 250, 300, 400, or 600. That's too low. Okay, what did you try
Yeah.
to bring that up? Did you do a testicular ultrasound to see if you have a varicocele, right? A mild varicocele or a severe varicocele or something in between, right? Where the blood flow to the testicles is just not correct, right? It could be a structural issue. Maybe you got kicked in the nuts a couple times during, some school events, or you just hit the genetic lottery and you got a varicocele since birth, and that's why you didn't go to puberty correctly, right? Those are all on the table. You need to get that diagnosed before you say, well, this 300 nanograms per deciliter is finite, and it will always stay like this, and I can't bring it up because mine were 600, right? But I lived the lifestyle 100%, besides, doing the work and stuff, right? But I would bring my meals. I would not miss workouts. And with the limited knowledge about supplements I had, the creatine and the taurine and the NSE, the N-acetylcysteine, that kind of stuff, the basic supplements we had back then, I did it all. I fully left the lifestyle as much as I could, and still going to work, right? Still doing my money making, which social media didn't exist. So all you had to do was, be employed and work hard, and then you get a salary, right? That's the options we had back then. Good luck being self-employed when you're like 21, 25 years old without social media. It's very hard. Especially in Holland with a ton of roadblocks. So, you do the part, and then you realize, okay, 600 is quite good. But then over a decade, I saw it come down, from like 750, 800 down to 600 ranges. And then you realize, okay, I'm at my natural limit and I'm financially secure. I've got this longitudinal data of blood work. I didn't do a testicular ultrasound because I didn't know about that, but my testosterone levels were quite okay. I didn't do HCG monotherapy to see if my testicles would respond to that, because nobody talked about it, right? I was one of the first, even though I didn't. I mean, if you go to PubMed, you see that doctors have been doing HCG monotherapy for decades, and it's not something new. But I think I was one of the first to talk about it. Like, if you're thinking about a first cycle, why don't we see if your testicles are responsive to HCG? So at least we know that by the time you come off, or you use HCG on cycle, that your fertility stays sustained and that your PCT is going to be successful. Right? Why don't we do a testicular ultrasound to see what's going on internally? Maybe one of your testicles kind of messed up. Maybe that's why your testosterone is so low. Right? And then, of course, this is something you can still do, and so many people can do also. But school, stressful, recreational drugs, not good for testosterone levels. Trust me, I've been there. Nutrition, which is getting worse by the year, right? I mean, it's even scientific evidence now that nutrition and environmental factors are just one of the reasons why testosterone levels are declining. And when you start treating your body like, I want to get the most out of it, again, takes a lot of money, which most young guys don't have. Unless you're on social media banking, which I would, advise people to do, right? But you have to offer something of value, like tanner, right? Offer something of value, not just butt cheeks and silly exercises. And OnlyFans. I mean, the potential of OnlyFans is limitless, of course. But getting to that financial position when you're younger, and then taking the plunge. I mean, I'm not against it if you've been bodybuilding for a couple of years and you're in a position where you can, learn and gain the knowledge to make you have a good outcome. I'm not against it, but I would still advise people to wait until they're like, 25, 26 years old. It was kind of right the age what I was. But I'm an old fart, so don't listen. What do I know?
That's honestly the downside of it, is that the education, like, it's all out there, but then it's a matter of like, is it actually accessible to the people who need it? Because in my experience, it was, I had known about some things, but I didn't realize something like, enclomiphene could have been an option to just see if I could elevate my natural production that way. or something like HCG, just as a purely HCG monotherapy experiment. I mean, I did do an experiment on cycle where like I deliberately let my nuts shrink and then I added in HCG during the cycle and they actually got volume again. So that was pretty cool.
To surprise the girlfriend, like, look at this magic trick.
Yeah, exactly. Helps with the load volume too. That's always fun. Yeah,
exactly. Right.
It's
what doesn't help though? What doesn't help at your age is that HCG is harder to come by than SARMs. That doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
You know, like HCG is very difficult to source nowadays. There's only a couple sources who carry it because, you know, somebody in government figured that HCG should have been listed as a biological, so it's even more difficult to get through a TRT clinic. And that makes it for guys who are wizened up even harder to do it correctly from the start because you can buy SARMs everywhere. There's discount codes for that, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
But pharmaceutical HCG of high quality, good luck, man. I mean, it's hard and you have to import it, which makes you run the risk. When SARMs, you can literally buy, you know, domestically and get it within the mail and no questions asked. So that you know, makes the entry a little bit harder. Because even if you want to do it correctly, it might be difficult to start correctly because of the liability and the legal issues. Yeah, and the sourcing.
At least, you know, with the SARMs, because they are just all generic anyway. There is that like generic HCG is available on a lot of the research chemical websites. I know that my brand has HCG. I personally found success with it, but it is always going to be safer, you know, if you have that very, very high quality source. Yeah, just that downside of pricing, especially for guys who really are looking for like a fertility protocol. The amount of HCG that you need to use is quite up there, and that's not cheap. Not nice on the wallet.
You're gonna break the bank, dude. Trust me.
Yeah,
I'm breaking the bank every month, and I'm lucky that I can get it for a better price than most people because I'm a celebrity now.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? All the little perks you get sourcing things. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, so that's the funny thing. Like, people always ask me, like, Steve, what about the source? Where do I find? So just become part of the fitness industry, and these sources will find you, dude.
Yeah,
they'll find you.
Yeah.
You know, all you have to. That's why I always tell people, just at least get on social media if you want to be a part of the fitness industry, because Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, that's literally your resume. Yeah. Where people can see you, and the more posts you have, and the more likes, and the more followers, and the more reputation you have, the more leverage you have to get shit done. Yeah. Not with the doctor. Doctor's not going to give a shit about your TikTok following.
Right.
But at least within the rest of the industry, I mean, you got first Detachment Nutrition, right? And then
they're really
good. Yeah, right. And this peptide company that you're working with?
Yeah, ResearchM.store.
Yeah. ResearchM. What else? Which other affiliates you got so far?
So it's a ResearchM store, and then I also I used to work with Amino Asylum, but not so much anymore.
Right. Okay.
And then there's a local supplement shop that I really like, so I support my local guys, Ultimate Sports Nutrition.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So you got 3 sponsors, and how old are you now?
I am 23.
23, 3 sponsors. I mean, that's getting it done. Yeah. That's getting it done. I had more sponsors than I had when I was 23 because there was no social media. my mom was a sponsor. She would give me a little bit of allowance. Nice, it's like $10 a week. Good luck. No, but listen, every sponsor obviously makes some money, right? You put that together with your services, and then you got a good salary. So this is why I try to make all young people understand that, listen, the opportunities on social media are limited, and you don't need to go on a cycle right away or do anything crazy. Yeah. But as long as you monetize your fitness journey or whatever expertise you have to contribute, then at least you can afford the blood work and get the pharmaceuticals. Right? It's just to get some disposable income, even if it's only $500 a month. Yeah, you know, it helps. I mean, $500 a month for blood work every month it's a lot. It's free blood work basically. Yeah. You know, of course I'll spend it on SARMs, but dude, you know. I think there's a lot of opportunity, more opportunity than we had as a kid and younger. You know, that's why I think, you know, if you go that route, at least document it. You know, if you're going to take steroids when you're that young, at least document something about it. Like Sam Sulek, and I don't think he's natural, and I don't think he's saying that he's natural, but at least he's banking on it, right? At least he's banking on it, and so are you. So that's why I think it's good. On the other side, you know, it is still, like, for me as an older guy, I'm still a little bit worried sometimes about all these kids online on steroids, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to change. I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to change.
Kids are always going to do dumb things. I think that's definitely the case. But exactly what you're saying with social media, it's, almost in any field, it doesn't necessarily have to be bodybuilding or PED education. You can leverage social media to just tell everyone about what you do as your day-to-day job. Whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or like a construction worker, there is a place and an audience of people who will follow that. And maybe somewhere along the line, there's a supplement that makes your life easier. You get a discount code with them. You start showing that to your followers. It makes their lives easier. And now you have this extra stream of income that kind of came just by you documenting your day-to-day life. And that's a really, really powerful tool for people that they don't even realize. When I was even making gear content, I was natural when I was making it for a while. So it's not like you
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a little bit too early, buddy.
And it was very basic. I'm not pretending like I knew anything. Everything I was saying was like, hey, there is this thing that says this. I'm just like the mouthpiece for saying that. I'm not saying like, I have experience with this and you should do this. Like never. I'm not going to be saying stuff like that. But basic level stuff like your first cycle is not going to make you look like Chris Bumstead. Basically anyone can say that, natty or not.
Right.
But that's the message I want to say is like, you don't have to be on gear to be successful. And a lot of kids, they see that as like, oh, if I want to be serious about the fitness industry, I should drop out of college and get on steroids and really make a life for myself. I'm going to get a discount code with this company or that company. Just focus on developing that quality content for yourself, and everything else will kind of come towards you, really.
Yeah. And there's a lot of YouTube channels which are actually drug free. And they got millions of followers, but they're just entertaining and they got good content and they really put in the work, and I don't think gear is required. Of course, it helps. I mean, it helps a lot. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty,
especially, and it helps even more if you lie about it. Unfortunately,
it's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's people. I mean, there's so many people willing to believe it that it's attainable, natural, but that's like the lowest hanging fruit. That's what a lot of these guys. I mean, aim for. They aim for the lowest hanging fruit. People are completely lost. And then they have these very false expectations and supplements to market towards that, which are just proprietary blends. You can't even research it. But this lowest hanging fruit, they will never research. Right? And that's the majority of the people out there. If I take this supplement that this guy that looks absolutely jacked talks about, then I'll look like him. But in reality, he's on a boatload of GH and test and whatever else. Yeah, that's an epidemic. Will also never go away. Yeah, but I mean, what can you do? I mean, I think everybody has to learn the hard way in that sense, to kind of get through that. And then they get to a position like they get educated by you or by me or some of the other educators, and they realize, oh, you know what? There is more to this stuff. There is more to this stuff.
There's a lot more. It's bizarre. More. I talk with a lot of my other influencer buddies, like the guys that I'm on the team with at Research M. We really noticed it's super unfortunate that some of the most popular people in the industry are in some way or another based on lies. Whether they're lying about their physique through Photoshop or lying about it through enhancements that they're not being open about, or even they say that they are on enhancements, but the doses they're fibbing and saying are disproportionately lower than they might actually be. And I think it's that gap between like what they say they're doing and how they actually look that everyone gravitates to. It's like, wow, like it's incredible. Their genetics are insane, or like they're a phenom, and it puts you in this mythological spot. When in reality, it's based on lies, and so it's especially from the mental perspective I'm talking about earlier. It's so damaging to young guys who think I want to look like that, but taking so and so supplement is not going to make you look that way. Completely false.
No, and then even when they take cycle so and so, they're not going to look that way. So they double it and triple it.
Exactly.
And they're still not going to look like that because they don't have the work ethic or the financial backing that all of these guys do. I mean, the financial backing that guys like I have or other bigger channels have. I mean, we can literally afford everything we want, and most of it is free because we get it either to our sponsor or we make so much with our discount code that the last time I haven't paid for supplements in over 3 years.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, people use my iHerb discount codes, just over-the-counter supplements, ubiquinol and N-acetylcysteine and that kind of stuff. Yeah. People use my discount code so much that I just laundry. Now we call it laundry. Laundry, whatever revenue I make from the discount code through supplements. So I get them on a discount through my own supplement line, and then I just use some of my affiliate commissions to pay for the supplements and send it here. So I literally haven't paid for health supplements for 2 or 3 years because people use my codes.
Right.
But I'm in a very comfortable position because I provide information and people want to use my discount codes as a thank you, basically. Like, Steve, I like what you're doing. Same as your case. I like what you're doing.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Right? You educate me. You help me. And I'm going to save myself money. And you're getting a kickback because everybody gets a kickback when the discount codes are used. I mean, that's no secret. So I'm in a position where I can literally afford everything that I need to. But yeah, when I was just getting started with bodybuilding or with performance enhancing drugs, that certainly wasn't the case. And then you really have to make a decision on what you spend money on. And that sometimes is very, very hard, like we alluded to earlier. I mean, it's, you can do a basic cycle, basic blood work, but it might be better just to wait, get financially secure.
Because if you're pinching pennies just to like barely get through your cycle, it goes wrong, or like you immediately need this or immediately need that, or like some sort of imaging or screening, man, you're screwed. There's not really anything you can do there. You want to have that back pocket of savings to make sure you get through your cycling life safely.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that some of the IFB pros promote exactly this. They said I had my first cycle on 1 ampule of Primo or 1 ampule of Test, and because I couldn't afford it anymore, and I worked 4 jobs. And it sounds like a success story, right? This guy turned pro anyway. But for every guy that did turn pro and turned it into a success story, thousands will fail.
Yeah.
So if you go that route, you better well make sure that you end up in a successful position like me or Tanner. Otherwise, otherwise you're just a failure, right? So better work for it. Yeah. So maybe if you throw yourself in the deep end like that, you better work for it and get yourself out of it, because there's so many failure stories that come for every success story.
Yeah,
it's more than people realize. But
they just don't get the publicity. Story. They don't get any.
No, you don't hear about them. Or you see them in the comment section complaining, but then there's no face attached to it. That's very unfortunate. Hey, let's leave it there. It's been almost 2 hours, dude. It was great, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Any final words for the young kids and the old farts like me?
Well, first, I got to tell you, like, you've been so welcoming. It's honestly insane. I mean, imagine the people watching, if they were in a position where it's like, I get to be on a podcast with Vigorous Steve. That's basically the place that I'm coming from. So it's really cool to talk to you, man.
You've earned it, dude. You've earned it. I mean, I see you're consistent with the knowledge. Your knowledge is good. You give credit where it's due, because I see my own thumbnails in your videos. I'm like, first I was pissed. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. You're actually doing a good job. Because I saw it with an audio and I see my face come by. Like, what the hell's going on? I didn't expect that. Who's this kid? What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But then I listened to your content and I followed you for a while. And then Justin Harris got you on his podcast. And then, I saw you last weekend on Paul. So you're vouched for, dude. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. 3 sponsors and vouched for 23. Double thumbs up.
Double thumbs up.
Nice work.
Front double bicep from Vigorous.
Yeah, front double bicep from Vigorous. Welcome to the fitness industry, buddy. Now, all you need to do is keep going.
Yep, that's true. Just a consistency thing. As far as a message for the younger guys, I mean, honestly, if you do have dreams like this, and whether that's like within fitness or anything else, leverage social media. That's been one of the craziest, most life-changing things I've ever done. It doesn't matter what your day-to-day life is. You can find a slot for that. You can find that niche and actually double down on it. And it's just like me and Steve said, be kind to yourself throughout the entire process. Because other people are not going to be kind to you.
Justin, tell me about it. Hey, did you quit your day job already? You're now full-time social media?
I'm still in school, so I got to graduate first.
You're still in school?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. All the kids are going to come to you that watch this podcast next week.
We'll see about that.
I saw you on Vigorous Steve's podcast.
I'll be a little celebrity on campus. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, when are you going to graduate?
Just this winter. Yeah. So I took a gap year. So now I'm out after that. Yeah.
Okay. Good. And then you'll never have to work for an employer ever.
Yeah. That's what's a freeing thing. Like, now that I work for myself, I don't know if I would ever be able to do a 9-to-5 kind of thing. It's really weird.
You won't.
Yeah.
I'm not able to go back. I made that decision over a decade ago, and I'm so happy that I went self-employed. And thank God for social media to make it happen, man. All you have to do is provide value, and as long as people love you and you give them what they want, then there's a job for you.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the next 5 to 10 years of you on social media. I'm sure we'll do more collaborations as time goes on.
That'll be a blast, man. Always good talking to you, man.
For sure, buddy. Have a good day. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is tanner.tattered. That is my first name dot last name. And on TikTok, that is .tattered.tt. You can find all of the links to my socials and whatnot in the FAQ. I'm sure we'll give that in the doobly-doo. Cool.
Right. Where's your YouTube? You have a YouTube yet?
Not yet, but that is in the works.
To
with
do.
all these podcasts coming up.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you should. Hey, thanks for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon. Yeah, have a good day.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Take care, buddy.
Take it easy.